Welcome back to the Time Vault. Today, we're diving deep into the cold, dark waters of the Atlantic to uncover the story of a weapon that nearly brought an entire nation to its knees. This is the tale of the German Type 7 U-boat, the workhorse of the Kriegsmarine's submarine fleet and the terror of the Allied convoys during World War II. Imagine you're a sailor on a lone merchant ship in the middle of the ocean. The year is 1942. Below the waves, unseen and unheard, a predator stalks you. A sleek gray cylinder of steel packed with torpedoes and a crew of 44 to 52 men living in conditions most of us can't even imagine. This was the reality for thousands during the Battle of the Atlantic, and the Type 7 was the undisputed king of this underwater battlefield. But what made it so effective? First, let's talk about its origins. After World War I, Germany was forbidden from building submarines by the Treaty of Versailles. But did that stop them? Of course not. They developed new designs in secret, using front companies in other countries. The Type 7 was a direct descendant of these clandestine projects, specifically the UB-3 from the First War. When Hitler came to power and cast aside the treaty, the plans were ready. Production began in 1935, and the first Type 7A U-33 was launched in June 1936. The Type 7 wasn't a true submarine in the modern sense. It was technically a submersible, a surface vessel that could dive for short periods. Its diesel engines were powerful on the surface, giving it a respectable speed of about 17 knots, faster than many of the merchant ships it hunted. But underwater, it relied on electric motors powered by massive batteries, which made it slow, around 7 knots, and limited its submerged range. A Type 7 could only stay fully submerged for a few hours at high speed before its batteries ran dry. This meant U-boat commanders had to be brilliant strategists, positioning themselves ahead of a convoy on the surface, often at night, before diving for the final attack. The main weapon of the Type 7 was its torpedoes. It carried 14 of them, with 5 torpedo tubes, 4 at the bow and 1 at the stern. A direct hit from one of these eels, as the crews called them, could cripple or sink even the largest freighters. Early in the war, these torpedoes were plagued with magnetic and depth-keeping detonator issues, often failing to explode. But once these problems were ironed out, they became terrifyingly effective. In addition to torpedoes, the Type 7 was armed with an 88mm deck gun, perfect for finishing off crippled ships or engaging smaller, unescorted vessels without wasting a precious torpedo. It also had anti-aircraft guns for defense, which became increasingly important as the war went on and Allied air power grew. Inside, life was a claustrophobic nightmare. Space was incredibly tight. The men slept in bunks, called hot bunks, because as one sailor finished his watch and climbed into bed, another would take his place, never letting the bedding get cold. The air was thick with the smell of diesel fumes, unwashed bodies, and cooking food, mostly canned goods. Fresh water was strictly rationed. The constant ping of an Allied destroyer's ASDIC sonar was the soundtrack to their fears, a sound that meant a depth charge attack was likely imminent. These attacks were terrifying. The U-boat would creak and groan under the immense pressure of the explosions. Light bulbs would shatter, and water would spray from strained pipes. For the crew, all they could do was hold on and pray the hull would hold. The Type 7's heyday was during the first and second happy times, from 1939 to early 1942. During this period, experienced U-boat aces like Otto Kretschmer, Wolfgang Luth, and Günther Prien sank hundreds of ships. They operated in wolf packs, groups of U-boats that would coordinate their attacks to overwhelm a convoy's escorts. A lone U-boat would spot a convoy, radio its position to U-boat command, and then shadow it while other boats raced to converge. Once the pack was assembled, they would launch a coordinated, multi-directional attack, usually under the cover of darkness. The chaos was immense, with ships exploding, escorts racing to rescue survivors, and torpedoes streaking through the water from all sides. For a time, it seemed like the wolf packs were unstoppable, and they were sinking ships faster than the Allies could build them. Winston Churchill himself famously wrote that the only thing that ever really frightened him during the war was the U-boat peril. But the tide began to turn. The Allies were not idle. They broke the German Enigma codes, allowing them to read the U-boat's secret communications and reroute convoys around the waiting wolf packs. They developed new technologies like high-frequency direction finding, or HUF-DUF, which could pinpoint a U-boat's location when it transmitted a radio message. They introduced new and improved radar that could detect a surfaced U-boat from miles away, even at night. Long-range aircraft like the B-24 Liberator were equipped with this radar and powerful searchlights, allowing them to patrol the mid-Atlantic Gap, an area previously out of reach of air cover. Suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. The Germans responded by upgrading the Type 7. The most common variant, the Type 7C, was followed by the 7C-41, which had a stronger pressure hull, allowing it to dive deeper to escape depth charges. They also added more anti-aircraft guns and a snorkel device that allowed the U-boat to run its diesel engines while submerged at periscope depth. This let them recharge their batteries without surfacing, making them less vulnerable to aircraft. But it was too little, too late. The turning point came in May 1943, a month the Germans called Black May. The U-boat force suffered catastrophic losses. Improved Allied tactics and technology led to the sinking of 41 U-boats in that month alone. The experienced commanders and crews were gone, replaced by young, hastily trained men. The Wolfpack strategy collapsed. For the rest of the war, the Type 7 boats fought a losing battle, still dangerous, but no longer the war-winning weapon they once were. Of the 703 Type 7s built, a staggering 500 were lost in action. Over 28,000 of the 40,000 men who served in the U-boat fleet never returned, the highest casualty rate of any branch of the German armed forces. Their workplace was also their tomb. Today, several Type 7s survive as museum ships, like U-995 in Laboe, Germany. They stand as silent, powerful reminders of the brutal reality of the Battle of the Atlantic and the brave men on both sides who fought and died in the cold, unforgiving ocean. The Type 7 U-boat was a marvel of engineering for its time, a deadly and effective weapon that came perilously close to starving Britain into submission. Its story is one of innovation, of terror, of incredible hardship, and ultimately of defeat. It's a crucial chapter in the history of World War II, reminding us of the immense human cost of conflict fought above and below the waves. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into history here at the Time Vault. If you found this journey as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing and ringing the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. Let us know in the comments what piece of history you'd like us to explore next. Until then, stay curious.